Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Wellness Blueprints. I'm Jess Milner. I'm so glad you're here to nourish your roots with me today. I am okay, so I'm just gonna jump right into it because people used to ask me all the time, when I was and they still do, they still kind of like look at me in awe, like, oh my gosh, look at all the stuff you're doing. They used to ask me how I do it all, especially when I was working clinically in New Jersey. Like I was working, seeing patients. I had completed a master's degree, homeschooling the kids. And of course, like I love to cook, like my house was clean. And they're like, how do you do everything? My gosh, you're like Superwoman, you're Wonder Woman. And, like as much as I love my Supermom cups and my Wonder Woman things, the truth is I didn't. Multitasking sucks and it's not good for us. And I naturally like rejected the entire idea that I had to do everything. So while I was working clinically in New Jersey, I had a professional house cleaner that would come in and like do like all of the deep stuff and everything so that it was just smaller things that we had to take care of, and my kids, yes, they were homeschooled, but we had co-ops on Mondays and Fridays when I wasn't working. The Friday one was a little bit more low key, fantastic friends and stuff. I could get some work done while I was there. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would see patients, and my kids had a pod on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so, and then we made sure they were reading and stuff like that. But, so that was really, all of those things were happening, but I wasn't like, the drill sergeant for it all. That was our rhythm while we were there, and it was working for us. But now, it's completely different. Our rhythm is totally different. And at first, we were trying to kind of like make it the way it was before. But obviously, it wasn't going to work out because we were completely shifting and a season in our lives were changing. So naturally, it was going to move. So, now I'm working from home, building this humble little energy work and spiritual nutrition business. And I'm so glad you're here. And it's all online. So I'm home. I am homeschooling my kids, and we kind of jumped around with a couple different curricula now. I found one that we like. The kids are not going to a co-op. They go to some meetups for this, that, and the other thing. But we tried a co-op. We didn't really like it. So, we're just home, and I do not have a house cleaner now. We did have a gal that was coming that we were like bartering for space in the shop, and her life took her a different direction. So now it's up to me and the kids and Tim, and and that's great. And he does help because he's an able-bodied human. But let me tell you, with three dogs, one of them being a Tamascan, it takes, almost an hour, I'd say, every day just keeping up with the hair on the floor. It is unbelievable. Like just going through with the Swiffer and then, so, our rhythm is different for sure, you know. But the thing is, what you're going after is going to change. What's going to soothe your nervous system or is going to change. What you're going to resist against is going to change. But the whole point of this is that, you don't have to do it all. And there's very few people who actually do. From the outside, it looks like, wow, she's got it all together. She's doing all these things, because people still, they're like, oh, you're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, you're studying for your doctorate. And I'm like, yeah, they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, do you have any idea how much crap I don't get done because I got to do this, it's just, that this is normal. This is how people are. So very few people actually do it all. And the ones who try, like, oh my gosh, like you mamas out there that are working 40 plus hours a week, and then you got to get the food on the table. The kids got to get to school and back, and they've got their homework and they've got their extracurricular activities and sports. And then you got your things on the weekend. And, oh my gosh, like if you actually are doing it all, like I'm sure you're burning out and like you're freaking awesome, but it's okay to accept help and this and that because most people are going to end up being completely burnout. And we've been talking a lot about that, like with this all or nothing. And then like everybody's getting burnt out because we're trying so hard. Like, well, I'm supposed to be like the successful working mama. So I got to do all the things, we live in this like culture that glamorizes this kind of perfection all the time and all at once. Like, oh, this is how you're successful. This is how you're healthy. You have all this, you work, you go, you do. But nobody sees behind the scenes when you're crying in the shower because like you would like a few minutes to yourself, or you would like to just have like a couple of hours where you didn't have to be worried about like the 15,000 things that you're not doing right now because you decided to sit down. Balance, balance lives in the messy middle. You don't have to just be completely like, I'm not doing any of this, and you don't have to do it all. But somewhere in the middle is your balance and your rhythm. And it's okay to freaking look for it and find it. It's going to be different for you than it's going to be for other people. Okay. Because, your rhythm, it's going to change with the seasons of your life. Okay. Just like, our rhythm changed when we moved out here. And that, the fact that like your rhythm now is different from when it was before, that doesn't make you unworthy. It doesn't make you less aligned. It makes you human. We go through seasons. We go through all of these different changes. We're allowed to change our perspective. We're allowed to change our career. We're allowed to change our mind. We're allowed to change our whatever, change our hair color, all these things. It's okay. It makes you human. So it's okay to roll with it and realize that, okay, well, I think my priorities are kind of changing with this. So, I wanted to talk about this, like how this like doing it all is really just a myth and perfection is not the goal. And I know I've talked about things like this before, but finding peace in that middle ground, especially as we get back into the school year. I know my kids are going to be starting next week. Next week is Labor Day. And, and we start at home, of course, so that's when I have it set up for them. But a lot of the schools in the area here are starting up next week. Some places in the country and different areas of the world have been starting, this week and last week. So kids have been kind of trickling back in. So routines are naturally shifting again. Okay. Like everything is shifting back, back into the swing of things or something like that. But you have to kind of, you got to find your rhythm, find your alignment. And some days are going to seem like, oh my God, where did my rhythm go? Like this is insane. And that's okay. So if you want to just take a quick moment for an energy check-in, because we just kind of went through like all of this, like, right. So go ahead, take a deep breath, unclench that jaw. You can go ahead and stick your tongue to the roof of your mouth, like right behind your teeth there, and activate your vagus nerve. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Make sure those shoulders are down. Relax your chest. Take that deep breath in. Give yourself permission to not be perfect. All right. I have said this so many times. Colleagues have said it so many times. But for real, healing is not linear. There are cycles of healing. There are layers. It ebbs and flows. You might wake up one day feeling like $1,000,000. Like, yeah, I got through that problem. Everything's great. And then you go, a couple days later and you're like, why do I feel like this again? Everything ebbs and flows. So, it's okay to not have everything perfect and the same every single day. I mean, we have to kind of take what life throws at us. And sometimes, it can really kind of throw a wrench into your plans, but that's okay because we can just kind of pivot and go with it. And I mean, sometimes we need to go cry in the bathroom because this change is really hitting us hard. And I get that. You go do what you got to do. That's okay. Crying is okay. It is an emotion. That's okay. So, I mean, now flexibility is that's usually the medicine that you actually need, to let go of that rigid perfection, that you need to stay within this little box of like who you are. Like, okay, well, I am a single mom. I do this, or I am crunchy. I am holistic. I am spiritual. And when we put ourselves into these like little tiny boxes, we have this kind of like, almost like this kind of like, it's like you have to choose between like looking at it through like an identity and looking at it through alignment. Like, do you want to just identify by all this stuff or do you want to be aligned? So, we don't want to be stuck into like a box because that's going to, like, I got to check all these boxes and I'm stuck in this. Look at me. I'm just like this. That shields us from our inner wisdom. Because the identity part of it, that's not your inner wisdom. That's not your essence. That's none of that. That's something that's very earthly. That's something that, you can identify by lots of different things, but they don't need to be like your whole personality. Like everybody knows somebody who like, I'm holistic. That's their whole personality. Maybe it's their religion or their politics or homeschool or there's so many different things out there, but people kind of like take it on as like their whole personality. And that really, really does. It keeps you in a box and it keeps you from finding, your true healing, your true rhythm and true alignment. Because it's going after that all or nothing mentality that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks, where, it's like, okay, well, if it's not black, then it's white. Well, there's a gray area in the middle, well, it's wrong or it's right. Okay, well, that's going to be a matter of perspective. Like that is, that's subjective, literally anything. This is right. Okay, is it? Yeah, So we don't need to fit ourselves into these boxes all the time. And I think that, that's what we kind of do a lot, or society tries to put us in there. So, an example, I'm not sure if I've given an example like this before, but, you might think, okay, well, we're holistic, so, we can't go to a conventional doctor because we only use herbs and this, that, and the other thing. But that doesn't need to be true. I don't want you thinking that of yourself, because what you need to be is aligned with your health or your child's health at the given moment that it's happening. So if you feel like you need to go and get tested to see if you need an antibiotic, or if you think somebody's bone is broken, you need to go and get an x-ray, or you're going to choose to go and get an x-ray if that's what you think, but that doesn't mean, okay, well, I'm holistic, so I can't ever go to a conventional doctor. And that's really, really nonsense. And I see people from the other side saying things like, well, if you don't like this, and this about conventional medicine, then you can't come to the ER and get help because like you didn't like this, with that all or nothing mentality. And that is just absurd. And it's the same kind of thing. Like if you come to me and say, I would really like to work with you, but I am taking, and you list all of these pharmaceutical medications, that's okay. I'm not going to shame you. We're going to go look through them. We're going to make sure that, we're not going to do anything that's going to, contraindicate with anything, but, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you're taking pharmaceutical medication, so you suck, you're not holistic, and you need to leave. No, because there is room for everybody to find their rhythm and dance their way through life. And where they find their spot for their rhythm is probably going to be different from where yours is. And, and theirs is going to move, and so is yours. Maybe sometimes they'll smack in the middle, but most of the time you're going to be like, okay, people are different from me, and they should be. It'd be really freaking boring if we were all exactly the same, right? But don't try and stick to the label. You want to align with what you actually need, what your body needs, or what your kid's body needs. Okay. Like I am rather holistic, but when my daughter was limping around, we took her and got her a damn x-ray. Okay. Because that's what you do. Like, is this broken? Like, I'm not just going to stay home and give her homeopathics and hope for the best. There is an urgent care 10 minutes away. So, don't deny yourself something that you need because you're trying to fit yourself into a box. People do this a lot of the time with, with food. Just like my example from last week, which if you didn't hear my episode from last week, go ahead and listen to it. But I told the story about how I chose to give a couple of my kids vanilla milkshakes for lunch when the air conditioning was out in the truck and we were driving across country, because at that time, that was what was aligning with all of us and what our needs were. And when I looked at all of the choices that I had in front of me, that was the best one that was aligned with us at that moment. So that's okay. And then, okay, so an example with, somebody who fits in like, I'm spiritual. So you might think like, oh, Jess, like she does spiritual nutrition. She's a spiritual person. And yes, I would consider myself a spiritual person. Absolutely. However, spiritual does not necessarily mean, okay, well, I meditate every day and I never get angry and everything's always zen. No. First of all, anger is a normal human emotion. And if you feel it, you should feel it because we are supposed to fully experience our human experience here. If that makes sense. Like we're supposed to feel all of these emotions and allow those emotions to help teach us something. So, if you're seeing, like we're seeing, if you're seeing somebody that's like, oh, I'm never angry. Everything's all perfect. I mean, they're basically like saying they're a monk or something. And then they're kind of scoffing at people who do show emotion. They're clutching their pearls. I can't believe you did that. And I'm so quiet and talk like a mouse. They're trying to fit into some little spiritual kind of a box. And in doing that, nothing that they're putting out is really aligned with their true self. So, that's where they're at for right now. And okay, whatever, but it's not, that's not your true alignment. So, you're always going to find things that are going to keep you, you're going to notice your energy centers are out of balance. If you're constantly trying to keep to a label instead of allowing yourself to be aligned, you're going to notice all these different patterns that keep coming back up. Like, how come every time I do this, and I'm not going to go over examples for that right now, because if I get into, I'll go off on a tangent and then this episode will be like 3 hours long because you could really, really get into a lot with that kind of thing. But listen, moms, everybody out there, I want you to know it's okay to be messy. It's okay to be in the middle there. It's okay to find your rhythm and be like, all right, find your things that are important, do those things, because you know what, the things that we need to do, we're going to get done. And then those other things that aren't quite as important, if we would have forced ourselves to do them, we'd be burnt out. And then we're missing out on all the joy and the great stuff that's right around us because we're so busy being burnt out. Your rhythm, it doesn't have to look like anybody else's. So, your rhythm's not going to look like mine or your neighbors or anything like that. And it certainly doesn't need to be perfect. Actually, perfectionism is something that we should absolutely let go of. Perfectionism is an emotion that I find in doing emotion code sessions very often and have to release from people because, especially, a lot of us that are, have, imbalances in like sacral chakra area, have a lot of shame and feelings of unworthiness. We have a tendency to try and be perfect all the time because we feel like we're only worthy if we're trying to display how awesome we are and hope that we're going to get the recognition for that. And it's something that you do, it's under the surface that it happens. So you're not consciously thinking, I must be perfect. But you start to realize when you look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, why did I expect that to be perfect all the time? And it's literally will happen for multiple different things. So finding your rhythm is a lot of letting go of that perfectionism because, it's really not possible to have things be completely perfect. So trying is just going to make you insane. So your rhythm, it does not have to look like anybody else's. It's not going to. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work for you in this season of life, or even just in this moment. Okay, like the milkshake story, just in that moment. So it's okay to be messy. It's okay to make a decision that might be different or a little bit out of whack with like your normal, just because that's how it is, and it's okay to change things as well, because we have this thing set in us that we have to do all of the things. And when you can figure out ways that you don't have to do, oh, look at me and like throwing around my thing here, my microphone, I'm like punching it. We don't have to do everything all at once. We don't have to be superwoman. We don't have to be supermom, Wonder Woman, all of that. Even though people are going to call us that, and that's okay. Like, people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, you just do it. And there's always behind the scenes stuff going on. There's always, it's like, oh, look, everything's so perfect. She can do it all. Nobody can really do it all. Okay. So it's okay to figure out what is important and do that. Because when we stop trying to do it all, we automatically create space for the things that matter most to us. And those things will start to just naturally be pulled towards them. And that's when your nervous system thanks you. When you're like, okay, so maybe, standing here and folding this laundry or sitting on the couch folding laundry on the table or something. I'm just like punching my microphone again. um but if you're sitting there, just like doing a chore like that, or maybe you're just going for a walk in nature, whatever, you start to realize that like that is a time when maybe your mind calms down. You have something to do and but like for me, for example, like 15 years ago, even just like 10 years ago, it was really difficult for me to find it in myself to fold the damn laundry or to do any of those things. Like keeping up on housework was a big problem, even though like I hadn't gone back to school yet. I didn't have any kind of full-time job yet. But now, after seeing how much busier everything can be, doing something like that, I'm like, oh, this is actually much easier. However, I am also a completely different person by now. Every 7 years or so, we are completely changing in one way or another. So stop trying to do it all so that you can start to remember and feel that nudge, feel that pull towards what's actually important to you and what actually matters. Because those are the things that you're going to look back on and be like, wow, I'm glad I did that. And I don't want you looking back with any kind of regrets because, everything was the way it was. Listen, from 2012 until like 2016, I don't know which way was up. I had twin girls in 2012 and then 19 months later had a little boy. Oh my gosh. I don't even remember. Like if I didn't have Facebook memories and stuff, I mean, take lots of pictures, all that stuff, but don't feel guilty. Okay. Because even the mom, even the gal, like whoever it is that you're looking to that seems like they're doing it all, they're not doing it all either. They're doing the best they can. And sometimes that's messy and that is okay. All right. Because you're going to have that rhythm. You're going to have that alignment. All right. And, hey, every day, just strive for some amount of alignment. Just look for something that's going to soothe that nervous system. And some days it can be a challenge. I will fully admit. But yes, make room for those things that matter most, and your nervous system will absolutely thank you. So I would like to thank you for being here today and listening to this podcast. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, subscribe to me on YouTube, and go ahead and leave me a 5-star review. Please share this with somebody who is out there struggling with thinking that they have to do it all and be perfect. Share this with somebody who's struggling to find their alignment, somebody who needs help with looking at something through an alignment lens rather than an identity lens, because we can let go of small identities because it's in an alignment with what you're doing right then and there, because it's all okay. And I would like to give you a free gift. I have my daily energy alignment guide. You can go to go.deeprootedwellnessid.com/daily-energy and download that completely for free. That is my gift to you. So please share this with somebody. Come on back next week. Listen to last week's if you didn't catch that one, and stay in alignment. Okay. I'm here, your spiritual nutritionist. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Love you.